3 months ago, Refuse Fascism called on fellow anarchists impersonating protesters to meet outside of Washington, D.C.'s Lafayette Park. They were outraged that President Trump would show defiance against the siege of the White House at the end of May that resulted in more than 60 U.S. Secret Service Uniform Division officers and the torching of the historic St. John's Episcopal Church. Refuse Fascism had come to celebrate that they have gradually become an agitating tentacle of the Democratic Party.
Think about what it's going to cost to conduct Occupy-type protests all across the country, and especially in Washington, D.C. And let the people who are anguishing right now about a Trump-Pence administration, let all those who are seething with anger and rage, who are starting to organize and think about life under a fascist regime, know that they are not alone and that there actually is a plan and a way to stop this.
Regardless of the fact that they were in part formed by the Revolutionary Communist Party.
And let me say one thing to the white people in the audience. Now, you know, Bobby has been saying for a long time, we will not fight racism with racism. We refuse to stoop to the level of a racist to hate somebody because of the color of his skin. Well, that's fine. That's a cop-out. And if you act like that, the Black Panther Party will hate you. Not because you're white, but because you ain't taking care of business to organize other people. Teach them the need to support the black liberation movement led by the Black Panther Party as a strong, fearless voice against American imperialism.
In the studio, we have some good Americans. Carl Dix, co-initiator of Refuse Fascism, representative of the Revolutionary Communist Party. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Rashad. Because when I heard Black Voices for Trump,
right, yeah.
It reminded me of something. This is like having Jews for Adolf Hitler back in Nazi Germany.
Damn!
And we have known since 2017 that they are indirectly funded by the Alliance for Global Justice, which is listed as an organizer and fiscal sponsor for Refuse Fascism, which is in turn funded by George Soros through the Tides Foundation. As the Daily Caller reported, the benefactors of the Alliance for Global Justice and Refuse Fascism are listed online, according to its most recent 990 tax form. Alliance for Global Justice received $2.2 million in funding for the fiscal year ending in March 2016. One of the group's biggest donors is the Tides Foundation, a nonprofit funded by billionaire progressive philanthropist George Soros. Tides gave the Alliance for Global Justice $50,000. Refuse Fascism will be spearheading the left's self-described siege of the White House on September 5th, with a nationwide protest claiming, just as the German people could not have stopped their genocidal fascist program without driving out Hitler and the Nazi regime, we must act with all our resolve to drive this regime, a 21st century fascist regime led by a demented bully with his finger on the nuclear trigger, out of power.
Trump and Pence are operating out of Hitler's playbook, only they have nuclear weapons.
Following Refuse Fascism's initial pressure on Pennsylvania Avenue in the beginning of September will be the proposed September 17th 50-day occupation of the White House, coordinated by Adbusters, the same people that organized Occupy Wall Street 9 years ago. At the time of Occupy Wall Street, Adbusters co-founder, 78-year-old Callie Lassen said, "George Soros' ideas are quite good, many of them. I wish he would give Adbusters some money. We sorely need it," he said. "He's never given us a penny." But according to DiscoverTheNetworks.org, between 2001 and 2011, Adbusters Media Foundation received $309,773 from the Tides Foundation. Let us once again summon the sweet revolutionary nonviolence that was our calling card in Zuccotti Park. In the current atmosphere of violent destruction, where homicide rates are skyrocketing, does anybody really think that is a possibility? While the facade of protests cover for a growing wave of organized crime, as even far-left failure Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot just impotently pointed out, telling Time magazine, when people showed up on Michigan Avenue in the downtown area with U-Haul trucks and cargo vans and sophisticated equipment used to cut metal and the methods that were used and how quickly it got spun up, that wasn't any spontaneous reaction. The core of what happened, that's organized criminal activity. It was a planned attack. Adbusters also learned from Occupy Wall Street that funding a sustained occupation requires more than donations from the public.
Yes, I am outraged Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Will we see Hollywood celebrities mindlessly step up to support communist insurgency, as they did for the murderers and rapists they bailed out of jail recently with the Minnesota Freedom Fund? And speaking of Minnesota Freedom Fund supporters, Vice Presidential candidate Kamala Harris, who was immediately endorsed by Alexander Soros, is poised to ride the wave of siege anarchism disguised as anti-racism and anti-police brutality. This siege will emerge as a sustained attack on a segment of the American people.
It's glaringly apparent that many who support the present administration are either racist, steeped in racist religious beliefs, ignorant, or as my mother used to say, just plain dumb.
This time, they, not you, have an ally in the White House. This time, they have an ally. They're a small percentage of the American people, virulent people. Some of them the dregs of society.
I brought up the subject of what's going to happen after we take over the government. We become responsible then for administrating, 250 million people. And there was no answers. The only thing that I could get was that they expected that the Cubans and the North Vietnamese and the Chinese and the Russians would all want to occupy different portions of the United States. They also believed that their immediate responsibility would be to protect against what they called the counter-revolution. And they felt that this counter-revolution could best be guarded against by creating and establishing re-education centers in the Southwest, where we would take all the people who needed to be re-educated into the new way of thinking and teach them how things were going to be. I ask, well, what is going to happen to those people that we can't re-educate, that are die-hard capitalists? And the reply was that they'd have to be eliminated. And when I pursued this further, they estimated that they would have to eliminate 25 million people in these re-education centers. And when I say eliminate, I mean kill. 25 million people.
The siege expanding an already perilous tone for the future of a morally decaying republic.